How does a media conglomerate spend $150 million on a family-friendly animated feature film, only to watch it pull in a tragic $39 million globally, traumatize an entire generation of children, and permanently annihilate an entire state-of-the-art special effects studio before the movie even finishes its run in local theaters? This is not a hypothetical economic disaster scenario. This is the exact historical postmortem of the 2011 science fiction feature Mars Needs Moms. Released by Walt Disney Pictures, the project became one of the single most devastating commercial bombs in the history of cinema, resulting in an estimated write-down of well over $100 million for the House of Mouse. But the true tragedy of this production was not just the red ink on a corporate balance sheet. The real disaster was born from absolute creative hubris, a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology, and a blind corporate obsession with a visual medium that audiences found deeply physically repulsive. This is the story of how an industry icon tried to replace traditional human animators with digital marionettes, and how the terrifying aesthetic phenomenon known as the Uncanny Valley completely destroyed a multi-million-dollar tech partnership. To trace the lineage of this failure, we have to look directly at the artistic evolution of legendary filmmaker Robert Zemeckis. The visionary director behind timeless classics like Back to the Future and Forrest Gump had become completely convinced that traditional live-action filmmaking and standard two-dimensional animation were obsolete frameworks. Zemeckis believed that a technology called performance capture was the absolute future of cinematic storytelling. The technical process involved placing real actors in skin-tight bodysuits covered in dozens of reflective tracking markers. As the actors performed on a barren, empty soundstage known as the volume, digital cameras captured their structural movements and facial expressions, mapping that human data directly onto three-dimensional computer models. On paper, the technology promised complete creative liberation. Directors could place their cameras anywhere in a digital environment. Actors could play characters of any age, size, or species, and studios could theoretically save money on massive physical set construction. Zemeckis deployed this framework to moderate box office success with The Polar Express in 2004, followed by Beowulf in 2007. Convinced that the tech was a guaranteed goldmine, the Walt Disney Company stepped in. In 2007, Disney formed a massive joint venture animation facility with Zemeckis called ImageMovers Digital, based in Marin County, California. Disney poured millions into building a hyper-advanced pipeline, employing over 450 specialized digital artists and engineers. The goal was simple: produce a non-stop assembly line of hyper-realistic, performance-captured blockbusters for the global market. The new studio's initial project was a 2009 adaptation of A Christmas Carol starring Jim Carrey. While it brought in decent worldwide revenue, the production was plagued by exorbitant budgets, and audiences routinely complained that the characters looked lifeless, cold, and slightly unnerving. But rather than pausing to evaluate the audience's psychological discomfort, ImageMovers Digital immediately moved full steam ahead into their next massive project, Mars Needs Moms, directed by Simon Wells. With an out-of-control production budget scaling all the way to $150 million, the team set out to adapt a beloved, whimsical children's book by Berkeley Breath. But when the whimsical, stylized illustrations of the source material were fed through the studio's rigid photorealistic motion capture engine, the results were deeply unsettling. The human characters, particularly the young protagonist Milo, were trapped directly in the deepest trenches of the Uncanny Valley. Because the system captured realistic muscle twitches, but failed to accurately replicate the subtle, microscopic human microexpressions of the eyes, the skin, and the mouth, the characters did not look alive. Instead, they looked like rubbery, reanimated corpses with glassy, unblinking eyes. When the initial trailers debuted in late 2010, the public reaction was instantaneous rejection. Parents and children were actively repulsed by the visuals, describing the characters as creepy and terrifying. Behind the scenes at Disney, a massive administrative shift was occurring. Legendary executive Bob Iger and the newly appointed head of Walt Disney Studios, Rich Ross, were taking a hard, cold look at the company's financial exposures. They looked at the soaring budgets of ImageMovers Digital, evaluated the mixed audience reception of A Christmas Carol, and viewed the early, deeply problematic rough cuts of Mars Needs Moms. The corporate calculus was brutal. Disney realized they were funding an incredibly expensive studio whose core product was actively alienating consumers. In March of 2010, a full year before Mars Needs Moms was even scheduled to hit theaters, Disney made an unprecedented corporate announcement. They publicly declared that they were officially shutting down ImageMovers Digital entirely. The studio would be liquidated, and all 450 employees would be laid off the moment production on Mars Needs Moms wrapped up. It was a total vote of no confidence. Disney was so desperate to escape the motion capture business that they chose to kill the studio in advance, taking an immediate $80 million financial hit in severances and restructuring costs. They simultaneously canceled all of Zemeckis' future planned projects, including a highly anticipated, multi-million-dollar three-dimensional performance capture remake of the Beatles' animated classic, Yellow Submarine. Mars Needs Moms was now a ghost ship, a movie funded by a studio that had already been executed by its parent company. On March 11, 2011, Mars Needs Moms officially arrived in over 3,000 domestic theaters. The box office results were not just bad, they were historic. Tracking data originally estimated a modest $10 million opening weekend, but the film collapsed completely on arrival, scraping together a humiliating $6.9 million. It opened in fifth place, completely obliterated by the action movie, Battle Los Angeles. The public rejection was absolute. Audiences refused to buy tickets for a film whose visual style made them uncomfortable. Word of mouth was toxic, and Disney quickly realized that throwing more marketing money at the project was entirely useless. They quickly pulled their international distribution support, dumping the film straight to home video formats in several major European territories to mitigate their inevitable losses. When the theatrical run finally ground to a halt, the movie had accumulated a miserable $21 million domestically and an equally tragic $18 million internationally, leaving the global total at just over $39 million. Against a $150 million production cost and an estimated $60 million in global marketing and distribution fees, Disney was forced to absorb a staggering $100 million net write-down on the film alone. The absolute failure of Mars Needs Moms permanently altered the trajectory of the animation industry. It acted as a violent warning shot to every major studio in Hollywood, proving that technology should never be allowed to outpace human artistic expression. Robert Zemeckis' dream of replacing traditional filmmaking with a digital performance capture matrix was effectively dead. Following the closure of ImageMovers Digital, Zemeckis returned to traditional live-action filmmaking with his 2012 drama Flight, proving that real human faces carry an emotional weight that algorithms and tracking markers simply cannot replicate. Animation is an art form built on caricature, exaggeration, and stylized charm. When you try to force a computer model to look exactly like a real human being without the infinite complexity of actual human biology, you do not achieve realism. You achieve a nightmare. The ghost of ImageMovers Digital remains a monument to corporate blind spots, serving as a timeless reminder that when big tech tries to automate human emotion, the audience will always strike back. Was Mars Needs Moms the ultimate victim of a deeply flawed visual medium, or did Disney make a massive mistake by executing the studio a year before the film even had a chance to find its audience? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up with our ongoing investigative series, and I will see you all in the next corporate autopsy. Peace out.